Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us in Between the Covers. Here this evening with author Jade Murphy, who's going to be discussing his second book, Mango, which is a Jade Reynolds thriller. Good evening, John. I'll call you if I may.
Yes.
How are you? Welcome. Again.
All good, and very pleased to have it just about wrapped.
Yeah, good. So your book's coming out very soon, and we're very excited about it. So please tell everyone watching what Mango is and part of, I guess, your writing process for that book.
Yeah, very good. Well, the star of the show, the protagonist, Jane Reynolds, started out as a 3:30 in the morning wake-up call from my dream self. It happens often. So I thought to myself, as a good author does, I wonder what that was about. That's a message. So I scrambled out of bed and I made a few notes about the impression that was left by this figure, what she was wearing, where she was sitting, those sorts of things, so that I could go back to sleep and forget about it, and in the morning wake up and go, that's what it was about. So anyway, that's where it all started. And as I sort of looked at it, I thought, this person belongs in a coffee shop. She belongs in a coffee shop and she's drinking coffee, and that's where it starts. And then I had another flash where she just opened her coat and I saw the gun and the badge. I thought,
Okay.
Clearly she's a policewoman. So, okay, she's got to be a policewoman. So that's where it started. I thought, okay, that's the beginning of the story. I must build from here. And from that point on, I thought, police, good guys and girls, we need a bad guy. And we need some other supplementary characters. So I went through my cupboard of characters in the bad side, and I came across one that was a person I'd met in, basically barely a person, supporter of Osama bin Laden when I was living in Qatar in the Middle East. This guy had a shrine to him in his business office, believe it or not. And it's like, this guy had the deadest of dead eyes, like you would expect someone who is totally amoral would actually have. I'm going to make decisions about whether I have a coffee or whether I kill 100 people. And it was like, it was that sort of look in the guy's eyes.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, you're the bad guy. How do I fit this in? Yep. So at the time of this all coming together, gestation if we like, the business of the Quds Force general in Iran being outed as someone who was responsible for a lot of trouble around the planet in terms of terrorist groups and the like, had just been knocked over with an Israeli or American sort of missile thing. Well, okay, let's just keep him alive a bit longer and we'll make him the ultimate bad guy. Okay. So he was the controller of this guy who was running a terror cell in Australia. And anyway, so it's the good guys playing perpetual catch up with the bad guys, because the bad guys have had so long to plan this that anything the good guys do to try and catch him, he just goes, not yet.
That so anyway, happens. Yes.
Yeah, it's this to and fro between the police woman and this bad guy, and I won't say what their relationship is. People have to buy the book to figure that out. But I needed also to address a couple of social issues at the time, and just watching the news now, it's like women's issues. Yeah. So I thought, I've got to give this woman some stand on a social issue. So that was when I realised I had to make her a lesbian, because it's a difficult thing being a standout like that in a police force anywhere. I don't care who you are or where you are. Absolutely. It's just like the heat you get in your daily job, as well as trying to be a police person, is also you're dealing with all this other snide rubbish. Yeah. So anyway, lesbian she is, and I thought, well, I've got to come up with a really cool partner for her. So that cool partner is Cynthia, and Cynthia has really interesting background. She's part of the Israeli military establishment, if I put it that way, and it's all this interplay. So the policewoman who thought that her job was to just keep the brothel houses in order and book or stop your occasional bank robber who's thrown into this melee of stuff that she is totally unprepared for, with terrorism and international governments and just social issues cascading on ahead. And and her entire journey is her learning and trying to cope with the good and the bad that comes from all these external forces. She's really swimming in a soup at the beginning, and towards the end she manages to find some dry land for her feet, but it's a very sad sort of landing.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that's a very, as you say, a convoluted, but I'm sure well thought out story. And it's interesting that you created it from, I guess, an aspiration or an inspiration in a dream, and then you formulated. Now, would you say writing this book was that common to your style of writing, or is that something that this book just seemed to create and then you developed it on that mode to put the pieces together, as you said, like you had to create other characters to complement the first character that you actually really visualized in a dream? But did you find the writing process different for this book for that development, or was that?
Well, before I went too far, I might sound kinky to some people. I went and found a raging redhead in like one of these picture places, right? Where you can download the picture and pay $5 or whatever. Yep. And I just loaded that profile of that person into a Word document. I spent hours just looking at it. And I was as I was looking at it, I was thinking, I'm going to implant thoughts into your head and a personality and all that sort of stuff. So as something came to me, I made notes under the picture. So that before any of the other story started, I actually knew Jade Reynolds inside out.
Yeah. And is that, as I said, is that normally what you do with a lot of your characters in books from researching, or do you just did this one just become a unique character for you, or?
Oh, no, it's all research. Yes, I have inspiration, but I always back it up with available fact.
Of course.
As available to me.
Yeah, so was this book any harder for you to write on the fact that you were dealing with a lot of those political issues, social issues?
It's very challenging.
Police politics, internal politics, as well as community externals. I mean, how did you find?
Three major storylines, which did take some managing, especially where there were intersections. It's like, they say kill your darlings. Man, I killed some darlings. I was just like, I'm going along and I go, oh, that didn't work. Scrub it out, go back, start again, because there's like it's like a woven knot, there's like separate streams, and then every now and then stream 1 and 2 would touch, and then 1 and 3 and 2 and 3, and all eventually 1, 2 and 3 would touch, and it's like it was like being one of those people who juggles balls. I hope I didn't manage to drop any.
Did you create that linear line in an outline or in a brief, or did you just sort of try to write it as it flowed with you, like you let the story write itself? Some writers don't plan out chapter to chapter, don't plan out the whole plot. They just sort of develop. They know where they want to go, and they just let the arc sort of flow. Or did you structure it? How did you find the process?
This was structured. And I used a tool called Plotter, if I may be commercial. Plotter, P-L-O-T-T-R. And it's an absolute wizard of a thing for me. It works really well, so I can drag and drop and carry on. So what I did was put lines and stuff, and I put the major action points or turning points of the story in there. And then I went back and did the fill-in stuff, and hopefully got the timelines right.
Good. Well, that's great. So was there any from having written your first novel, The Arbor Girls, was there any challenges new in this experience of writing a second novel or understanding the craft you've developed?
Yeah, well, the first one was pretty much a straight line. And yes, I had multiple story threads there going, but it was like, that was easy. It was really relatively easy. But this one was like, I didn't know anything about gender issues. I didn't know a single thing about terrorism, and I knew nothing about the police force except being pulled up for blowing the bag, please, sir. So I had a lot of learning to go and scenario running just to make sure I didn't put any overt clashes in the story.
Yeah, well, having done that research, do you find like writing the fascists and writing the politics and writing the as you said, the sexualities of the main character, did you find those challenging to learn, but also then to interpret into the characters and personalities? Because those regimes and fanatics can be quite difficult to give that unique personality. You still want to create that unique personality. Was that a challenge, or did you find that you could actually understand enough to get the right elements for your book?
Well, with the bad guy, I just made him thoroughly evil. We're all on a continuum between rational and completely irrational.
Yep.
And
you just flipped him over a bit further.
Terrorists are right at one end, and there's a lot of literature about them. So it's like, I read about it, and okay, I like that personality, but crazy, so I'll put that in there. And so it worked. It worked really well. On the gender issues, it was like, oh, okay, we'll run this, but we'll see what happens. And it was pretty good. I sort of shared it with females. I won't say which ones and whom, but they all gave me a view saying, it doesn't really work like that, John. So, okay, so like this? And they go, yeah, that's more reasonable and more likely to happen.
Absolutely, yeah. Having the beta read, having the feedback is important too when you're constructing a story, especially when it's got so many dynamics. You've got to keep each dynamic clean and unique to, and also authentic to its story. So how long did it take you to write this book, given from your comparison to your first book you published? How did this feel? Were you more confident? Were you more thoughtful, or were you more casual? What was the writing time?
The first book I did was a discovery journey, because I'd not written a novel before. This one is like, I know a few of the ropes now, and I was more professional, if I can use that word, about it. So I used more tools. I used Word in a certain way. I used Plotter. I used memory maps, and I just made absolutely sure that I used these, that everything was coherent, so that as I was putting it down on paper, I didn't make too many mistakes. I mean, Peter found a few, and I go, I missed that. But that's what editing's for, isn't it? She was really good, gave me the perspective I needed.
So the editing process also you were more comfortable with, you understood more about what was happening, and the publishing process, of course, I imagine you would have been more comfortable with having had that book published. So so that element would have been more easier, more also, I think, because I think if I remember, we were discussing this book while we were releasing your first book, and of course you were saying that this book we could almost plan for being ready to publish when you were. So you sort of knew that goal was already given, and you could sort of plan it that way, and just work in that timeline, which helps, I think. So very good. So how did you come up with the names for the characters in the book? Why Jade Reynolds? Like that's a very it does have a masculinity to it. It has a very, Reynolds has association, of course, we know as a very famous character. But why the Jade Reynolds? Like, why did that feel? And how do you name your other characters? Like, how did you find these names?
So I have this personal rule that no name will be more than 3 syllables. And I try for 2, and my best preference for first names is 1 syllable, because that gets used the most. So it's easier for people to remember Joe than Felicity. Do you understand what I'm saying? So absolutely. I trawled through online lists, and I had like dozens of names. And I take that sort of first name with that surname, and I run them together. And it's like, because to me, Jade Reynolds flows. It works. And,
the whole name is only 3 or 4 syllables. Jade Reynolds. It's only 3 syllables for the whole name. So it's good.
So if I want someone to be difficult to read, as in I don't like this character, I give them more complexity in their name. So people have this little thing inside that goes, I don't like people with long names.
Absolutely. Like, you read some names and the writers get creative, and you're like, I can't remember that. I'll just call him Bob. It's fine.
Yes, exactly.
So with that, when you said you suck her picture in and you wrote her character, or thoughts about her character, how you interpreted her picture and the thoughts about her, you felt Jade Reynolds fitted her description, felt it gave her the flesh that you wanted her to have in the story. The name.
Absolutely. I was gobsmacked at how easy it was really to turn this person from this 3:30 a.m. dream and a bit of an image into the character that I wanted.
And what about the Arabic or the other names outside the box of general Australian names? How did you create those? Did you research a lot of that Arabic or Islam naming?
I lived in the Middle East for a number of years.
Oh, good. So you had some associations to some of the name sort of content.
I was like, it was like learning by immersion. It was learning by immersion. And it's like I was surrounded by these all these old Maktoums and old Kawaris and old whatever, and it's like, okay. So but I was able, with the help of a lot of my clients, because I was in an HR role, and then I explained the whole Arab naming system and tribes and where it all originated in Yemen with
Good.
the
and that's a big asset to you, and it shows in the book too.
With the Al Saud, I can never get that right. Anyway, the Saudi royal family.
Yeah.
The House of Saud. There we go. That's it. Saud.
That's it. Saud.
And of course, then it's like the Iranian naming system is different again because it's a different branch of Islam, and I had to go and pick up some stuff there as well. And again, I met Iranian people when I was in the Middle East as well, and you know, just the inflections in their language was like, yes, I know that person now. So it's just like people I knew being recycled, honestly. Good. That's
great, because like I said, it added an authenticity that you can read it and you also understand that maybe there's a possibility you know them, or there's an element of your comfort in their character that you write. So tell us, have you heard a lot from readers based on your previous book, but also in anticipation for this book? Have you had any expectations yet, or from your readers, your fans?
No, not at all. And I could say that I'm not the world's greatest salesperson, but also at the same time we've had that COVID creature, and would be, and you'd know more about this than me, is what would be normal sales and communication channels have just been hammered. So it's going. I want to hasten forwards fastly, but I'm going slowly.
Yeah, no, that's great. It is. And it is, you've got to work with the climate. Unfortunately, we are working in a climate where there's a lot of technology, to say online resources being utilized very at the high level, and hopefully things will taper back where people get back out into the community, out into the streets, and out into living world again in much more comfort. So tell us about any other future projects, John. What have you evolved to now? You've got a second book coming out. What is your next plans and inspirations for your writing so far?
I'm going to try and take a different tack. I'm going to do, the next one is going to, as we talk now, is going to be probably what we'll call fantasy. It's fantasy, but it's grounded in the real world. Yeah. And it deals with geopolitical issues.
Okay. That sounds intriguing just by that few comments. That's interesting.
Yeah, so again, it's just like 3:30 in the morning, poof, there's this guy, an image of this guy pops up. Yeah. And he's like obviously stoned or drunk or whatever, and he's just hanging out of his chair on the veranda overlooking the Pacific Ocean in California. I was like, okay, I'm not going to ask you any questions about this one. But anyway, he became the protagonist in a really, really exciting story about reclamation of the old ways in an island in Indonesia. The old laws, the old gods, conflicting with 21st century thinking.
Wow, well done. Well, that's great. So you've got another big project, I guess, to develop and to build on. So tell us about your expectations or hopes in the sense of, what you would see as people getting out of Mango. What would they enjoy? What do you hope readers will take away from this new book?
Well, I hope people go on an emotional roller coaster journey. I really do think that that's why people read books. They're just like, I've already tasted vanilla ice cream. I want some rum and raisins and chunky chocolate in it. I need something to chew on. So I've purposely taken everything out to the edge, the terror thing, the gender thing, the politics thing, the violence. I've taken it all out to the edge, and people hopefully will be able to recognise that I'm doing that to give them a sense of where in the real world the boundaries are. Good. So they can better see the world.
Good. Well, we hope the feedback will be positive. So people watching, John's book is available in April. Am I not wrong, John? I think is our release date. 15th of April. You can buy a copy or order a copy pre-sale now. So please support John and his arc in becoming one of Australia's well-renowned authors. His previous book, The Arbor Girls, was also nominated for the Miles Franklin Award in 2021. So we're very proud of that effect. And Mango, I believe, will still have a good impact, both socially and politically, and within bookstores around the world. So, John, I'm going to ask you a few more questions. Tell me about any secrets or John or J.D. Murphy clues or pieces that you put into your books. Have you developed that characterization yet where you can, as a writer, as an author, place herrings in your own story that readers will recognize as your distinctions? Have you got that yet, or are you still mastering that? I remember we spoke about it briefly last year, and we were saying, what's your style as an author to be able to link your books as they come years from now when you've got 10 books up and you're sitting there, like, what do you feel? Do you design your books consciously with links or little reader things you put in?
Okay, so I'll say no, but that doesn't mean I haven't thought about it. I mean, I'm thinking deeply about how to put little bombs in there,
Okay.
but they've got to be meaningful. It's just it's not about bomb goes off and they go, ha, it's John Murphy, aren't I fabulous? It's not about that at all.
Yeah.
It's about getting people to go, have aha moments. That's
right.
probably what I would call the bomb.
Good. Well, okay, so now we just got to apologise to all the readers out there. So if they're looking for any little nuances, I'm sorry, not yet. John's working on them. They are coming in the next books. So tell me, with writing this book, did you feel it was energizing to you, or is it exhausting to you? How did you feel about the process when you've got such a big story to develop?
Well, having been a uni creature in my early days, master's degree in basically teaching, I have a taste for academic research. So when a time comes to actually ferret out that really, really unique nugget of information about the thing, I just wallow in all this data until I actually find out what I do. So it's like it might be one line in the story, but it took me days of reading to actually fetch that out and say, I want to use that. Yeah. But to me, that is not frustrating. That is just like excellent pleasure.
That's right. It's part of the experience. So when you have, you asked you this question before in your first book, in your first interview for Arbor Girls, but I'm just wondering if it changed with the sense that you've done this new book, but do you feel there's any traps that aspiring writers should be aware of, given that now you've gone through 2-book process? Have you found yourself more conscious, aware of other elements in writing and things that you can share now? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't want this to come across as negative, but I would recommend anybody starting out to restrain their enthusiasm for complex storylines, because you can get to the point, if it's your first book, you go, I'm not going to do this anymore, because it's really, really hard to plan multiple storylines and get it right. I mean, you can get it wrong very easily, but getting it right is the trick. So, I was a bit cocky when I was doing the first one. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And it's like, actually, John, you just don't know what you're doing. So back off, make it a nice, simple, time-passing storyline, and it worked out well.
Is that the KISS theory? Is that the KISS theory you're thinking about? The keep it simple, stupid, isn't that the one
absolutely.
that they say?
Yeah.
Like just be a starting book. Don't make it complicated. I agree.
Don't make it complicated.
But it's interesting.
There's nothing wrong with thinking complicated.
Absolutely.
Do simple.
To
get your trainer shoes on. But be prepared to think complex, because anybody can think simple and write a simple story, and Amazon's full of them. But it's
sometimes you still need the complexity even to create a simple story, just to get the elements right in the fit, so you understand it.
You got to get that ecosystem functional before you can actually pick bits of it out.
No, absolutely. No, that's good advice. I appreciate that, John. Thank you for sharing that to our viewers and to us. But we look forward to getting Mango out there. And everybody watching, please do grab a copy from your local bookstore. You can buy it online, but I do encourage you to go to bookstores. Your local businesses need support. So please do. And thank you, John, for your time again in discussing the Mango. And we'll touch base with you, I'm sure, in another year or so with another book, by the sounds of it. But looking forward to the results for Mango. And you can contact John through his website, jdmurphyauthor.com.au, or through us, shorelinepublishing.com.au. Thank you again, John.
Pleasure. See you later.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.